Alright everybody, if you've been making blades for any amount of time, you have probably broken one at some point, right? Snapped it in two. Well, that's what I did. First one I actually broke in half. I've cracked one before, but this is the first one that's actually broken half on me. It was going to be a carver, just a long 9-inch or so carving knife. And right after the quench, it had a warp and I was trying to straighten it out and boom, snapped it. Honestly, it wasn't right after the quench, within, the minute or so you're supposed to try and straighten it. It had already cooled down quite significantly and I was dumb enough to try and bend it a little bit, which I knew I shouldn't have done, but that's what happens when it's brittle like glass, right? So, point of this video is I want to see if I can actually make use of these broken parts, because I don't think there's any issue with the forge itself, the forging process. I don't see any dark spots or anything like that. The grain looks pretty good. So as you can see, this one I'm going to make a small paring knife, and this one kind of looks like a little cheese knife, right? So I'm going to make lemonade out of these lemons. So this is the first time I'm going to do this, so I just want to see if it's a good idea to, reutilize this metal. Why throw it out, right? When I can get a couple cool little knives out of it. So that's the point of this video, letting you know what you can do with your scrap metal if you know it's decent metal, of course. But let's see how this turns out. Alright, got the rough, I kind of got the chunk of metal out with the Dremel and the cutter and made the handle a little shorter on this one. I'm going to round it out. I don't know if you can see the drawing. But we'll go ahead and finish these profiles over on the grinder. Alright, well, I've got my little cheese knife cleaver ground down, taped up for protection, ready for handle. Same as the paring knife. And I've got some maple burl here that I've already prepped, sanded down the front of it to 1500 grit, and just prepping for glue up, deciding whether I want to put some liners between the wood and the steel. I've got white and black. I think the white liners will look pretty cool, but anyways, I'm deciding to do a no pin kind of design. As you see, there's no holes in the handle material before I go to glue it up. And that's because I'm not going to put a pin in these for a couple reasons. Well, one main reason is because the blade that I broke was already hardened, and I didn't really feel like messing with trying to drill through hardened steel. And I mean, I have a torch, I could have drawn it back some, but didn't really feel like it, and I think a pinless design will look nice. So what I'm going to do is just rely on these fullers I made here. This one actually has holes because this was part of the original handle. So some epoxy will be able to get through there and help hold it mechanically. But I got some fullers on either side. And what I'm going to do on the inside of the handle material is I'm going to drill barely into the wood, just to create some pockets for epoxy to go into. And I've never done this before, but what I'm going to try and do is with my hand drill kind of rotate along the edge of the hole and kind of make a dovetail, if that makes sense. That should fill with the epoxy and hold pretty nice. And these are going to be for like cheese knives and hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that, so I don't expect any abuse, so I'm not too worried about no pins. But anyways, let's figure out what we want to do with the liners and glue these suckers up. I love this maple burl. Looks real nice when it's oiled up. That grain really pops. Got the knife glued up. A little paring knife, a little cheese cleaver. Gonna do some grinding today and hopefully finish them up today. So let's start on that. All right, so I got the handles sanded down to a good 1500 grit. I like how these turned out for a broken blade turned to a couple little hors d'oeuvre knives, you know, for cheese knives or whatever you want to use them for. But let's go dip these things in oil and see how good that grain pops. All right, so you saw me finishing it up. I think I was pretty successful in making lemonade out of these lemons. So if you ever break a blade in two, maybe not all is lost. You can make some cool little cheese knives, little hors d'oeuvre knives, whatever you want to call them, if it'll focus. But I got a pretty good palm swell on them just because they're so small. You know, you want to feel like you have a good grip on them. I like how these feel. Took the handles up to a 1500 grit before I soaked them in the oil overnight, and that oil really darkened up the wood quite a bit, which I was a little surprised. It was a pretty light wood to begin with, but it really made the grain pop. I think it looks pretty awesome. I love this maple burl. It's a beautiful wood. I was pretty happy with how it turned out, and happy that the metal didn't go to waste. So I'll try to, you know, put these up for sale on my Instagram or Etsy, and, you know, just get a little bit out of them. I'm just happy with them. Cool little knives, especially in time for the holidays. Good to have some little hors d'oeuvre knives. I'm not going to sharpen them to a point where I would have a chef's knife. I'm going to keep them just sharp enough, you know, if you want to, you know, slice olives or anything of that nature, but dull enough to be safe for, you know, a spread or, you know, whatever you might do during the holidays or when you have company over in a platter of hors d'oeuvres. So thanks for coming along. See you in the next video. Bye.